In the news this week, a ban on so-called conversion therapy is announced in the Queen's speech. Final evidence is heard in the religious discrimination case against the multi-million-pound Robertson Trust. And a school chaplain is ousted after giving a sermon saying students were free to challenge LGBT ideology. Hello. The government has used the Queen's speech to announce a consultation on banning so-called conversion therapy. The consultation will consider the effect of such a ban on religious freedom in England and Wales. Assurances have been given by the government that it does not wish to outlaw legitimate forms of pastoral support and that any action will be proportionate and without unintended consequences. The Christian Institute's Simon Calvert acknowledged the pledge, but warned of a long battle ahead to make sure it was upheld.
Well, the government pledge on this is welcome, but even if they introduce a bill which doesn't damage the ordinary everyday work of churches, I'm afraid there are some MPs and peers who will try to amend the bill to make sure that it does. So we've got a lot of work to do to try to help people understand what's really at stake here and to try to counterbalance the media narrative where activists are weaponizing the concept of harm to try to justify oppressing biblical churches.
LGBT activists expressed dismay at the government's promise to consult the public, fearing their demand to criminalise the ordinary work of churches will not be met. Jane Ozanne complained, "Prayer isn't prayer if it causes you to hate yourself for being LGBT. It's actually hate prayer. It is dangerous, damaging, and must be included in a bill to ban conversion therapy." The chairwoman of the Robertson Trust has been accused of humiliating the organisation's chief executive over his link to a church with biblical views on marriage. Kenneth Ferguson was dismissed by the Trust after its chairwoman, Shonag McPherson, objected to his church renting Trust premises. The Employment Tribunal is assessing his claim for unfair dismissal and religious discrimination. Last December, lawyers for Mr Ferguson accused the Trust of holding a sham disciplinary hearing, and in these latest proceedings, the tribunal heard evidence from the Trust's former head of finance, Katie Campbell, on how McPherson's behaviour hardened towards Mr Ferguson. Notably, she said that during one meeting, the chairwoman sat with her back to Ferguson and muttered whenever he chose to speak, noting that other people commented on it. The case has now concluded, but a ruling is not expected for some time. A school chaplain is taking legal action after he was sacked and reported to the government's terrorist watchdog for challenging LGBT ideology. In a sermon, Rev Dr Bernard Randall told students they did not have to accept the ideas and ideologies of LGBT activists where they are in conflict with Christian values. But Trent College reported him to Prevent and later sacked him, claiming he had upset some students. He is now taking the school to court for discrimination, harassment and unfair dismissal.
This is the sermon I gave in June 2018. But remember that religious belief is just as protected in law as sexual orientation. And no one has the right to discriminate against you or be abusive towards you.
And finally, the Equality and Human Rights Commission has abandoned trans guidance for schools after academics and parents raised serious concerns. The draft guidelines would have forced girls' schools to admit boys and told others to allow boys to participate in girls' PE lessons. But after the plans were criticised for being misleading and confusing, the Equalities Watchdog decided publishing them would not be in the best interests of young people and admitted they may not provide schools with the clarity we hoped. Parents and academics said it shows what a mess we create when we conflate sex and gender. Well, that's all for this week. For regular updates and information on all of our stories plus much more, visit our website at christian.org.uk. Until next time, goodbye.